This is Title 18, Word Crimes. I'm Erik Arneson. For this episode, I interviewed author Robb Cadigan at NoirCon 2014 in Philadelphia. Robb's first novel, Phoenixville Rising, is available now from Rogers Forge Press. Robb does a great job of talking about Phoenixville Rising in the interview, so I'll leave that to him. I will just point out that Phoenixville is a real place in Chester County, Pennsylvania. It's about 28 miles outside of Philadelphia, and it is home to the annual Blob Fest, celebrating the classic sci-fi horror movie The Blob, which included scenes filmed at the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville. Now, here's my interview with Robb Cadigan. We're here at NoirCon 2014 in Philadelphia. I'm talking with author Robb Cadigan, the author of Phoenixville Rising, which is set in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. And first question, why did you choose to set your story in Phoenixville?
I really chose Phoenixville for selfish reasons. A few years ago, well now about 20 years ago, my wife and I decided that's where we were going to settle and raise our family. And I really just started to look into the history of this place that our kids would call their hometown. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. My wife is from a different part of Pennsylvania. So we really didn't know Phoenixville. And the more I got into it and the more I was learning just for my own benefit, the more I realized how much history has really happened in these small Pennsylvania steel towns. And I think that history is slowly being lost with each generation. So as a fiction writer, you're always filling the well and you're getting ideas from everywhere. I was actually working on something else at the time, and this story just took shape as I was learning more and more about the background of this town.
The economic transitions that the town goes through and that the people who live in the town go through play a role in your book. Can you talk about why you chose that as one of the themes you wanted to explore?
Absolutely. Phoenixville at one point was really a thriving, prosperous mill town. It generated the steel, the iron and the steel that built much of this country. Many of the railroads, the railroad bridges that still exist today use Phoenix steel. So really until about the 50s or the late 60s, this was a heck of a town to live in, and the economy was strong, everybody had jobs, but for a number of reasons it really started to go downhill. And once the mill was abandoned, you had this entire generation of young adults who lost their future. Their future was predetermined. They knew they were going to go work in the mill the way their parents did, their grandparents did. All of a sudden, that wasn't an option. And the characters in my book are really at that fork in the road. Do we stay in this town? If we stay, what are we going to do? Because our future is gone. So they're one of the options is to a life of crime. And so they are faced with that decision. Do they take the fork and go to the left in the life of crime, or do they try to get out? And so some of the characters look at it one way and some look at it the other. Phoenixville in reality has come back and has enjoyed an incredible renaissance, and it's very artistic now and really a tight community. And the reason it survived versus other Pennsylvania towns that you see kind of dotting the map of abandoned mill towns, the reason it survived was people didn't leave. For the most part, Phoenixville mill workers stayed because this is where they were born, they were proud of this community, and they pulled together, and it was slow, but it came back. So it really has been, the title of the book, Phoenixville Rising, is as much the protagonist's story, the man, the rebirth of this man, but also the rebirth of the town.
And can you talk a little bit about, without spoiling anything for anybody, the general plot of the book?
Sure. It's about a man who is returning to his hometown after 30 years of being away, and he comes back for different reasons, and he's forced to revisit this tragic week that happened when he was a juvenile delinquent hanging out in the abandoned steel mill. And it's kind of a tricky story or novel to describe, because It's part coming of age. It's very much a coming of age narrative, but there's a crime story in there. There's a historical romance in there. So it's really cross genre. So it's not an out and out crime story. It's not an out historical novel, but it has a mix of a lot of different things that have really seemed to resonate with readers and connected. And the town of Phoenixville embraced it, but also I've been getting a lot of nice reviews and comments from people all around the country that say that it reminds them of the town they grew up in. And all of us go through these coming-of-age decisions. We all have our forks in the road that my characters go through.
And certainly economic challenges like Phoenixville faced are being faced still or have been faced by communities all across the country, whether it's a transition away from steel or a transition away from something else.
That's right, and I think as a teenager especially, you're always looking to get out of wherever you live, whether you live in a thriving community or not. You want to see the world and you want to make something of yourself. When you're in a downtrodden area or a town like Phoenixville that was essentially abandoned, the decision's a little easier, and then you're faced with, well, how do I get out? But I think we all have those little stepping stones or those forks in the road.
Well, thank you very much for taking a few minutes to chat with me here. Are you working on anything upcoming that you're able to talk about?
I'm very excited about the work in progress. It's more of a straightforward crime story set in the 1950s, based on an actual case in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. Look forward to that. Thanks again.
Thank you, Eric.
That was Robb Cadigan talking about his novel, Phoenixville Rising. You can learn more about Robb at his website, robbcadigan.com. That's ROBBCADIGAN, robbcadigan.com. He's also active on Facebook and Twitter, so you can find him there. That does it for this episode of Title 18 Word Crimes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget that you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. My partner in Word Crimes, Scott Detra, will be back soon. He'll be reading short stories from the likes of David Cranmer, Johnny Shaw, and many more. You can find me at erikarneson.com, ErikArneson.com. I'm also at Erik Arneson on Twitter, and easy to find on Facebook. Every episode of the Word Crimes podcast is archived at erikarneson.com. Check out the page for this episode to find a link to Robb Cadigan's website, and much more. The music on this episode is by The Throws. You can find them at The Throws, THROES, thethrows.com. Thanks again for listening to Title 18 Word Crimes. We will be back soon.